Okay, so we're just going to talk about our agenda here. We're going to talk a little about us, as little as possible, and then we're going to talk as much as we can about the Ascent ERP 4.0 package. We're going to talk about re-architecting the core, a little bit about what is going on and what's new. Then we're going to do some demos. We're going to talk about the ancillary packages around the 4.0 package, and then we're going to talk about the roadmap, and then again Q&A. So this is the safe harbor slide. We have to legally show this. Essentially, buy based on what's available now. Don't buy based on what you see in this demo. So I'm going to move on. So I'll introduce myself. My name is James Gaines. I'm from Atlanta. I went to school here at Georgia Tech. Go Jackets. I'm still based here. I have a ton of experience with Salesforce. I've been a developer, a customer, a consultant, an ISV partner, and now an executive. ERP is my passion. I'm an enthusiast. I wouldn't have been doing it this long if it wasn't the case. I have certifications in the developer path, the architect path, and the industry clouds path. And fun fact about me, I'm kind of a weekend warrior. My sport of choice is flag football. And just like here at Ascent, I almost never spike the ball in the end zone. I spend my time passing to others who are more skilled than myself and who eventually make the magic happen. So speaking of passing the ball to someone else very skilled, I have a colleague here of mine today who I trust tremendously and rely on every single day. And so, Paula, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi guys, nice to see your name lit here on the screen. I am from Romania and I joined Ascent 1 year ago. I was kind of new in Salesforce, but as James said, I'm very passionate. I already had my admin certification and app builders also. I am part of the technical team, so if you will reach our support, there is very high chance we collaborate in the future for different projects that you may need us. And yeah, so let me think about a fun fact about me. I'm not a really fun person though. I can go hiking for 10 miles and sleep in a tent, so I don't mind getting dirty while enjoying outside.
Awesome. Thanks, Paula. Okay, so before we get started, I just wanted to pause for a second and thank our amazing customers and partners. Without you and the Salesforce platform, we wouldn't be able to build all of these innovative products. So thanks for your support. Okay, so now let's talk about Ascent. So our vision is to be the most extensible, flexible, and scalable inventory and order management solution on the Salesforce App Exchange. And so we aim to provide tools around that to make companies more efficient, which give them the ability to serve their customers better and faster. Instead of going into the history like we did in the overview webinar, you guys can see that in the overview webinar today, we're going to take a look under the hood like we've never done before. And so as you guys probably already know, Salesforce is the whole customer 360 thing. They have this sort of maniacal focus on all things customers. And inspired by that, we created Operations 360, which with Ascent ERP 4.0, we aim to match their intensity, but for your items and your services. And so I want to point something out that's a dirty little secret about the Salesforce ecosystem is that not all native apps are created equal. What do I mean by that? Well, our whole strategy from day one is to build native apps designed specifically for Salesforce and keep up with all things Salesforce. All of our competitors say, maybe they build native apps or they have some sort of composite app, but in practice, they're really not native. And whether it was porting something over from an old system, from an older era, at a different time for a different technology stack, and basically just spreading their technology around on different platforms, or maybe they're simply going off platform with their data to process it and you don't know it. And in many other scenarios that we can bring up here, hardly any of them are truly designed from keystroke one for Salesforce. So let's don't grip onto that too tightly. Let's just go ahead and add to that. And so at this time, Ascent is a product-led company, and I'd like to show you what that means. Here are just a few of our products, and basically we do everything operations. So all these things are available on the App Exchange and they're native. And one of the cool things about this is that you have this flexibility. You can kind of mix and match these things. And so you can choose for someone in your organization to have access to all of them, or you can kind of ratchet things up and make it as tight as you want and only give them kind of like a small tunnel of like what they need to be productive. And I'm going to stop here. And I'm going to start digging in here. So what we're talking about is we're talking about things like permission sets, app sharing, roles, field visibility, functionality access, data access, all the great things that we like to talk about at the water cooler. Yeah, I want you to start thinking about the Ascent suite of apps in the same way. So everything you see here is Operations 360. And so let's get into it, right? So with Operations 360, everything's connected, everything's centralized. Yeah, there are different personas using the system, but they're not using different systems. They're using one system. It's the same data. So the purchasing and service guys, same data. Accounting and sales, same data. And so instead of this like push and pull thing that we've seen our customers kind of harness this concept of Operations 360, where different departments than sales are kicking off a sales cycle. They're generating revenue. They're creating better customer experiences. And so with this scenario, centralization is critical. And the world of changing and thinking of how you can make your ERP better for your business and it taking months or even years is over. All this stuff is at your fingertips, and I'm going to give you a quick crash course on how we made that possible. So this is a very small slide, and I'm going to spend a lot of time on it. As a CTO of Ascent, what I'm about to share with you is pretty difficult to talk about from a personal and professional level. And what we've done here is like really remarkable. So we know that so many companies' livelihoods and individuals' jobs depend on the consistency and the performance and the security of our application. We have literally examined and scrutinized every single line of code in our code base. This is called refactoring, and it is a very laborious and painful process, but it's a labor of love. And so when we decided to go on this journey, we reached out to Salesforce team and we asked them to be our Sherpa. Our goal was to meet or beat all of Salesforce's standards for ISV partners on all fronts. When we encountered a roadblock, we contacted them and we actually redesigned our product with them. And to be clear, we didn't just refactor like some parts of Ascent, right? This Ascent ERP 4.0, we refactored it all. And so this took actually 2 years to accomplish, and we rebuilt the whole darn thing. And so this was a massive, massive project. And we couldn't have done it without building deep connections within the Salesforce internal teams. And needless to say, our goal has been met, okay? And in the coming slides, I'm going to touch on the summits that we've reached and the struggles that it took us to get there. And for partners on the call, you should know that there's been a heavy emphasis placed on last mile flexibility of the system. Said another way, how can we build a product that is feature complete while still providing the flexibility for our certified partners to build tailored solutions? So in the end, the point of this controlled refactor or redesign is that we wanted to create the best path for our customers to get to their unique requirements. And we made a conscious choice to reinvent ourselves as a product company that enables partners to do exactly what customers need and nothing less. So how do we do this? All right, there's a lot going on this slide. This is the architecture diagram of Ascent. It really doesn't matter what you can see or understand in the diagram. The big part of this is that you realize we've thought of everything. And add to that, we're simply sharing this in a public forum. There's nothing to hide here. So in the middle, dark blue area, everything is Ascent. And I'll get into that in a minute. I'm going to talk about the outside, and I'm going to go clockwise. So from the top left is Salesforce CRM. These are things that we all know. Next to that in purple is marketing and commerce. On the right side is the Lightning platform. On the bottom is the infrastructure layer. This is everything that is that Salesforce has built. And on the left is the security and the industry clouds. So the point here is that we aren't just like fitting in somewhere in the platform. We're right in the middle. And we use that to our advantage at every stage. So here's kind of what the Ascent, the middle blue part looks like. And when we talk about Apex patterns coming up, it's going to get real deep technical. The important takeaway here is that Ascent is now layered like a sweet, sweet design of goodness, okay? And so you got your application layer, master data layer, shared services layer, and integration layer, okay? So Apex enterprise patterns. So we redesigned using these patterns. What are these patterns? Well, without boring anybody with like the musings of a CTO and getting kind of deep into this, I'll just say this. These are the best damn coding standards and patterns that you can adopt. And it's not just for Salesforce. This is in general for programming across the board. And so everywhere that it fit, we punched through Apex enterprise patterns, no exceptions, okay? And so let's start with the basics. I'm going to go through 2 of the patterns, right? But in reality, there are so much more. but these are the easiest ones to talk about. And I think also it's the ones that most people know. Okay, so trigger consolidation. So this isn't rocket science, really. If we have developers or admins on the call, we know that you can't control the order of execution of triggers. We have all heard the word trigger. Maybe we're not sure what it is. Essentially, what's happening is, there might be multiple things happening on an object, and you're not sure in what order that they're going to happen. There's no guarantee that there's an order. So since we're not like some simple invoicing tool or quoting tool, we're a business system. So we need things to happen in the right order, regardless of what's going on in the org. So what we've done, again, is we've scrutinized everything, and we've made one core triggering system. So when something happens, regardless of what's going on, we always follow the same pattern. And this creates a high performance, predictable, and reliable product. And so for some people, they may say, man, this is old hat. Well, as you build a system over the years, you might need to have multiple triggers on an object. And so in order to go into a one trigger system, what you have to do is what's called logic extraction. Okay. And so here we have this very meticulous approach where we rethought every bit of logic because it may have been disjointed in different places. And we've really brought it together in one core, and we've remapped each bit of logic, regardless of where it is, into centers of truth, layers, right? So what the layers thing I showed you earlier, I'm going to go back here. We're actually putting these things in different layers so that they can be abstracted out. And so why does this matter? Okay, so with shared centers of truth, we have a lot of this reusable, repeatable business logic that can be extended by partners. And it doesn't matter if it's a big extension or a small extension. The key here is that the partners can now extend these business logics that we provide as part of our app. And so, some partners are probably very excited to hear this, and it's been the documentation of this has been a huge undertaking, and we want to get that out to you guys as soon as possible. So there's a real life reasons why this is cool, not just because of partners. Like with triggers, there's this kind of thing where you might, you have to batch up things, or they might run out of resources or things like that. And so in practice, if you have a large data volume org, or you need to do things that don't happen immediately, you want them to happen later, you can do what's called asynchronous processing. And so when we've abstracted out this logic from the triggers, right, now we have this thing that you can either extend, or you can bring it over here and you can do the processing in a whole different thing than a trigger. And so what I'm talking about platform events, I'm talking about queuable Apex, I'm talking about batch Apex, future methods, all these things that a lot of you guys probably know about asynchronous processing. What this does is it makes governor limits kind of a thing of the past. If you need to process a ton of data, a ton of data with custom logic, we have built a well-worn path to success here. And so that's the biggest two things that everyone on this call should know, is that now if you need to do something that you previously saw in a trigger, it's something you can extend and you can process a ton of data with it. Okay, next up, compliance. I encourage everybody to go to compliance.salesforce.com and look at all the wealth of things that Salesforce has done for us. And as we know, there's been, kind of no real shortage of security breaches and laws and regulations and all sorts of stuff in between. And trying to keep up with this stuff as an organization, as a software company, is daunting. And it's more than a single person's full-time job. It takes massive corporations working tirelessly like Salesforce to become compliant with everything that's going on in the world. And so luckily, we have, with Salesforce, done essentially everything that they've asked and more. And so what this means is that we can focus on building Ascent and the new native features that we want to do, as long as we live up to the standards of Salesforce that Salesforce expects for ISV partners. We get to offer you guys, almost as an award, all of the things that Salesforce has already done in this area. And remember, our goal is to meet the best standards, and we've done that. So you're talking about things like the EU-US Shield, the trust and disaster recovery. It's all an afterthought for us now. It's all there. So like SOC 1, SOC 2, SOC 3, ISO compliance, we can offer all of these because we've complied with what Salesforce needs a native app to do. And so not all native apps are created equal. And I meant it. So we're going to talk about some other things that we've done. The DML validator. Now, there's so many things I've said, so many letters and combinations and acronyms. So I want to go into what is DML validator. So DML means data manipulation language. And so we are validating the data manipulation. So this is the thing that allows you to actually create records in the database. And so what this has done by putting in this DML validator is that we've created kind of a deeper, more predictable, controlled solution for admins. So in the past, and I'm going to share some secrets here, but in the past, almost every app on the App Exchange had loopholes where security could kind of be skirted by, building different types of tools that would allow actions to happen in the background, or they weren't permitted. However, the user probably wasn't permitted to do these things. And if you built sort of a fancy backdoor, you could pretty much do anything you wanted in Salesforce. And so now with this DML validator, Ascent won't let you do that. So every single transaction that happens in Ascent, there's this gatekeeper, the DML validator, and it's waiting there. And it interrogates the transaction and it says, does this user truly have the permission to do what they're about to do based on the custom and standard permissions that are assigned to them? If not, DML validator stops that transaction and alerts the user. Now, maybe the user doesn't want to know that, and maybe they need to, or they want to do that, but they have to go now to an admin and find out what's going on. And this was a Salesforce thing, right? But honestly, it was an Ascent thing too. And what we did was we said, look, we aren't going to let anything happen that shouldn't happen. So the DML validator is there, and it's militant. Nothing is going to get by it. And so this is if you guys ever run into this error, you're going to probably email support, and you'll probably get a hold of Paula, and she'll help you out. So let's talk about cross-site scripting. Look, I think a lot of people know what this is, but there's something where there's like a man in the middle between you, the user, and the database, and they're like picking off information that you're sending to the database, and they're sending it somewhere else, right? So we've totally revamped any sort of scripting scenarios. So this doesn't really exist anymore. And so the kind of artifact of this is that we had to remove things from Ascent. So there were things that were security risks like jQuery and some JavaScript libraries that we used to make Ascent really fancy. So like some of the things that we did that were dynamic and things like that, we needed those things. And we had to rethink those using smaller, more secure tools that Salesforce supported. So this was actually a very difficult undertaking, is removing things that we were used to using and adding the more secure ones. And it wasn't like we were insecure all of the time. It was like Salesforce told us, hey, look, this is no longer secure. Like, we're not considering this a secure thing anymore. You got to remove it. And we did. And we rebuilt the features and functions that Ascent did, but with this new tool set. And so credit to Salesforce for identifying all this stuff, because we certainly don't want to do that. But credit to our team of rethinking how to approach these things. And so this sort of thing where we've done this iteration back and forth with Salesforce, this has kind of led to us being in the top 1% of technology adoption with Salesforce. This is likely the thing I'm the most proud of, guys, is that this isn't just like, a software thing we're going to talk about. This is kind of a culture thing. And so, nearly all like SaaS companies out there are or were using some combination of documents, spreadsheets, tribal knowledge, some stuff like that to test and ensure the quality of their products, okay? And while redesigning our core, which we just talked about, we also reinvented ourselves. So what we did was we implemented a test and quality management tool. And this tool allows you to plan a test. It allows you to create a template for a test so that you can later reuse it. And then it actually allows you to execute that test. And it keeps a historical record of every single test. And so you can kind of see the life cycle of what's happened for something. And so this all started with Ascent 4.0. So we have very little life cycle, right? But as the time goes on, this will get better and better and better. And we can find out even more about what's going on with every single feature. So this allows us to get to the point where we can actually automate the testing. So meaning like once we get really good at planning and templating and testing, we take those templates and we feed them into an automation tool. And now a computer is running that thing and testing it just like we were without us having to do that, so we can focus more on building new features and new functions and focus more on creating more templates. And so what we want to do is we want to bring this forward to our customers eventually and to our partners to say, look, here are all the things that have happened, with these features and in your org. So this will allow for things like having audits and saying, well, what happened to this particular feature in our org? Here's a test case that says that it changed on this date, and we can give you that information. And so additionally, what we've done from a culture standpoint is we've added these automatic audits where not only a code review will be done between two different people, but every once in a while you have to review an old piece of code that hasn't even been touched. And so this is another thing that we want to bring forward to our customers. So essentially what I'm trying to say is that Ascent 4.0, Ascent ERP 4.0 isn't just a version number. It's like a step forward for us, and that's a step forward for everyone, customers, partners, and ourselves. So there's some new features in Ascent 4.0. I'm going to start with REST APIs. So what we did was we built APIs for almost everything in Ascent. And unless you've been living under a rock or just have no idea what's going on out there, you know that REST APIs is the way, right? This is the way, as the Mandalorian would say. And so this is the way of integration in the modern business world. And so the big takeaway we have here is that we have this modern way of integrating with everything else, and you need to stop being worried about integration and start thinking about how to take advantage of this. Okay. And so the next things that we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about RMAs, quotes, work orders, allocation, allocation, hard and soft allocation of inventory. And then finally, Paula is going to talk about multidimensional taxes. So here we are on returns. So returns or reverse logistics have gotten have gotten some serious attention in the new Ascent ERP 4.0. And so previously what we did was we had the Service Cloud case, and we had like an object hanging off of the Service Cloud case. And we said, everyone who wanted to do anything with reverse logistics would probably have Service Cloud. And so we're just going to build our return off of Service Cloud. Well, what we found out is not everyone that wants to do returns wants Service Cloud. Now, using Service Cloud probably makes returns a lot better. I want to start there. But if you didn't want to do that, what we've done is we've created a new page for returns. And you don't need the Salesforce case and Service Cloud to use it. But if you do use the Salesforce case and Service Cloud to use it, it becomes way better. And so you have the flexibility to have, maybe you have an organization where some of the returns won't be Service Cloud users and some of them will be Service Cloud users. So you can use these things in combination. So there's a lot going on with the Salesforce case. Sometimes it can get super rigid and it can make it difficult to do really anything. And now you're going to add reverse logistics in there. You're either going to have to loosen up a little bit of stuff, or you're going to have to figure out how to tighten up this reverse logistics piece in Ascent. What we've done is we've given you the ability to kind of do that slowly over time. So if you'd like to adopt reverse logistics for your organization, then you can do it in many different ways. And this flexibility has kind of created, what we've seen for customers is they've created a lot of exciting ways to use the return that we never really even thought about. And so some customers are actually starting the sales cycle with a return. And so, and they don't necessarily need to be interacting with the case to have that happen. And so this also makes it easier to integrate with external systems because you don't have the rigidity of the Salesforce case. But again, I'm not saying it's better without the case. I'm saying it's better with the case. But in a scenario where you have a lot of tightening happening there, you might want to have the return separate. So if you want to know more about that, please contact sales and they'll help you and walk you through that. Okay, so on the quotes, what we've done is I want to talk about two things today. One, we have our own quoting tool. It hangs off of the opportunities. Some of you may not know that. Our quoting tool has always been included. It's not extra. So it's inside of our Ascent ERP 4.0. And we've made a bunch of improvements to the quoting. We have this configuration functionality in our quote. And you can configure something before it becomes an order. You can add things, you can subtract things. There's like this grouping concept. There's sort of like a kind of a guided selling thing that's going on there. There's some rules. So it's really kind of fancy, and not a lot of people use it, but we keep building it, right? And so if you're interested in that, I suggest you contact sales or a partner. But today I'm going to talk about quote sync. So if you're familiar with Salesforce quotes, you have like the opportunity, and then you have the quote, and then the user is working on the quote, and then they don't want to do a bunch of work everywhere. You just want to do work in one place, so you can sync the quote with the opportunity. But with Ascent, there's a third thing, which is the order, right? And so what we've done is we've made a way for you to sync our quote object with the Salesforce opportunity, just like Salesforce quotes. But then also, when you generate a sales order from that quote, it syncs up all three. So all three now are connected, right? And they all have the exact same data between three areas, so you can see what happened. So now for the demos.
Whether it be soft allocation, hard allocation, allegation against production work orders, or allocation done as part of the work order process. Here we see a bike helmet. It's just a regular item. It has 35 quantity on hand. None is allocated, and so we can promise up to 35. So first customer calls up and says that they want bicycle helmets. So that's Loose Nuts Bicycles, just a small bicycle shop. They call us up. We create an order. We ask them how many they want. They say they want 22. So let's go ahead and add that to our order, 22, and hit save. Now what we're doing here is we're going to talk about soft allocation. So I'm going to go back to the bike helmet, and I'm going to look and see what happened after creating that order. Okay, so it says that there are 22 allocated quantity. That happens automatically when you create an order line. And so the available promise is actually 13. The next customer calls up and they say, okay, REI, much bigger customer, they say, I want all of your bike helmets. Okay, and the sales guy, even though he goes to the bike helmet and sees that he can promise 13, he tells them that they actually has 35. So this is going to be a rob Peter to pay Paul scenario, where the sales guy says, REI is a very, very important customer. We need to go ahead and ship those 35 out now, and our Loose Nuts Bicycle customer is going to have to wait until the next batch. So sales guys asked the operations team to go ahead and pack this order. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to click pack, and I'm just going to do a regular pack out. We've all seen this before, and we're going to see what happens. So now if I go back to the bike helmet, we see that there's a 22 allocated quantity from Loose Nuts Bicycles, and the available promise is actually negative. Okay, so let's go ahead and receive a purchase order to get more inventory in. I know of a purchase order that's already out there. It has 35 here, so I'm going to go ahead and receive this first purchase order line to get inventory into the system. And this next time that we do this, we're actually going to show what happens when you use hard allocation. So we just saw what happens when you use soft allocation. So after I receive this PO, we're going to have 35 back in stock, and we're going to be back to where we were before. Just to confirm, let's go back to the bike helmet, and here we are. So there's 35 quantity on hand, 22 allocated quantity, and those 22 are from this order from Loose Nuts Bicycles. Now, again, the sales guy calls up and he sees, the sales guy from before from REI, he says, oh, look, we have 35 in stock. And so REI calls up and says, okay, we want all 35 again. So we create an order and we add 35. All right, so at this very moment, we're back to where we were before, where there are two customers who need inventory, the same inventory, and one customer had their order put in first, and the other customer put their order in second. So on this first order, if we were using hard allocation, which is the opposite of what we just talked about, we were actually going to allocate the order. So there's an extra step for an order after it's placed, and that step can happen automatically, or it can happen via clicking a button. I'm going to show you how it works with clicking this button here, allocate order. And behind this button, there are a number of different inventory models. And an inventory model is something where it says, do I want to do first in, first out? Do I want to do first expiration, first out? Do I want to pick the inventory with the biggest amount of inventory in it? There's a multiple different kinds of allocation models. This is going to choose the one that we have set at the org level, and it's just going to smartly allocate the order. So when I'm going to go ahead and click allocate order, and here what we're going to see is that we end up with allocation lines. So here, if you scroll or hover over this allocation lines, you can see that I've actually allocated 22, all 22 of this order to this particular piece of inventory. Now, what this means is that no one else can get this inventory. It basically secures the inventory for the specific customer, for the specific order, so no one else can get it. And if we were to go over to the REI order, and since we've already done that allocation, let's go ahead and see what happens when we allocate on the REI order. Now we know that we don't have enough inventory for it, so we're going to have a problem here, but let's go ahead and do it. So I click allocate order on this one. And what ends up happening is we have an allocation line as well for this one, but this time the REI order only got 13 because we had 35 in stock. 22 of them were given to the Loose Nuts Bicycles on their allocation line, so they only get 13 on this one, and we get an additional record here, a back order line for 22. Okay, so now we got two separate records here. So if we go back to Loose Nuts Bicycles, the only thing you really have to do now that you have the allocation line, like we discussed, is you have to actually pack the allocated order. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. It's just doing what the allocation line already said, and now the order is closed. And so we go ahead and get a regular pack sales order line like we're used to, and we're actually going to go back to the bike helmet, and I'm going to give it a little refresh here. And what we're going to see is that we have 13 quantity on hand, and we have a quantity issue of negative 22. So how do we fix that? We're going to go back to the purchase order that we previously went to, and we're going to receive that additional 35. Okay, and so the reason why we're going to do this is because we're actually going to be able to pack the entire order for REI. So I'm going to go back to that order, and remember this is the order with 35 needed, but there's the allocated quantity is 13 and the back ordered quantity is 22. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pack the allocations. So when I do that, it's actually going to pack that 13. It's going to say partially complete. That allocation line is going to be packed, and we're going to get a pack sales order line here. So we end up with the allocation line is 13. Its quantity left to pack is 0 here, as you can see, and our pack sales order line is for 13. Well, we still have this back ordered line of 22, and we know that we have the inventory we just received from the purchase order. So we can go ahead and allocate this order a second time. And what that's going to do is it's going to allocate that 22 back order line and go ahead and close it out and give us a second allocation line. So here you can see the back order line that we previously saw was 22 is now allocated, and we get that second allocation line there for 22. And to go ahead and close the loop on this whole thing is we can go ahead and pack the remaining allocation line. So you can see how this sort of more rigid solution for creating an allocation line for the amount that you can. So with a smart inventory model, and then you can also have a back order get created, and then you can come back, and when that back order can get allocated, this is a very rigid system where orders won't get lost and inventory won't get lost, and we won't have any robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Okay, so I'm here, I'm trying to build a new sales order, and I'm in the scenario where I'm that customer that have all my taxes actually tied to the account. So that means that I'm not going to allow maybe user input here. You maybe even want to hide this tax code field. And I will just create a sales order with the customer account, and we will see what does it happens once you do that. Of course, as you can see here, the account is tied to the sales order, and we also have, under the tax section, we have a tax code. So if you go into it, actually this is a tax code that it's tied to the account itself, and it will go whenever you use that account on different objects. So maybe if you've used Ascent and you know actually taxes, you're familiar with this view and this object tax code. The tax rate, actually, it's the value, the rate of the total tax that this you can have. This is not something new. Maybe depending on your use case, you want to hide this field. So our area of interest about the new things is these fields, which represent the granular view of taxes and looking at it, because maybe you don't want to see 12%, but you want to see exactly what those 12% consist of. So because our account is from British Columbia, we know that here we have actually two types of taxes, which are goods and services and provincial sales taxes. And we will see actually what's the impact of having this tax code on the sales order. So starting from here already, we will know actually how our totals will look like once we add the sales order line. So I'm going to add my sales order line. You won't see the list I'm going through now because I'm sharing only one tab, but I was searching for the item. So let me just get one quantity of this item for my sales order and see exactly what does it means from tax perspective. So if we go on the sales order line, actually this is everything what, let's say, multidimensional taxes means. We now have separate fields to iterate separate type of taxes and tax rates actually and tax values. And because in British Columbia we do these two type of taxes, we will have this percentage here, and we even see what does it mean from the unit of price. So that means that for good and service taxes, I will pay 0.85 cents, which is the 5% of the unit price. I also see the tax code and the total tax value per line, because then if we will go back to the header, we will see that you will add up the taxes from all the lines. Just a small note here, actually, like a side note, out of the package, the fields are called tax 1, 2, 3, and so on. So you can use Workbench override if you want to change the field label, so to have something that makes sense for you and for your area of business. So now if you go back to the sales order, yeah, it's something that it's worth mentioning, and I didn't mention actually, is for instance that maybe your flow starts from the code itself. So because of the tax assignment logic that I explained before, you don't need to think about tax code again when you move from code to sales order. So it's the same thing here if we go from the sales order to the sales invoice. So in order to generate the sales invoice, I'm going to really quickly pack this sales order and then generate the invoice and see exactly how multidimensional taxes look on the invoice itself. So here is our invoice. Already we see the customer, and of course I'm expecting to see the tax code. We see the total tax per the line, and if we go on the line itself, we will see actually the same fields and the same granular and information we had also on the sales order. 1 second, if it won't charge. So here it is. We see the same. So that goes for all the objects that we support, and we do multidimensional taxes.
So I just wanted to talk about, there's only a couple slides left. We're almost done. Just want to talk about what happens when you refactor a core is that you have to refactor everything else around it, right? So you guys, probably almost every customer and partner knows what the Ascent financial platform is. We've refactored this to work perfectly with Ascent ERP 4.0. Rentals, the same thing. We've made some improvements there that I'll talk about later. Ascent for products, which is a way to synchronize with Salesforce quoting, has also been refactored. Ascent for e-commerce, which is allowing you to do integrations with e-commerce packages. The Label Anything package with cloud printing is currently in process of actually multiple releases. And then also, as a result of all this, we have a relationship with government cloud and the public sector. Also, we have some functionality with retail cloud, health cloud, and manufacturing cloud. Okay, roadmap. I'll try to go as quickly as possible. So scheduled 2022 releases, what is coming soon? So in the master planner, which is a tool that allows you to see and do planning activities, whether it be for manufacturing or distribution, bringing in purchase orders or what have you. we're increasing and improving the filtering capability, because we know that people are getting these massive amounts of data in Salesforce now, and we want to be able to allow them to filter that data down into what exactly they want to see. Also, a really, really exciting thing is that we talked about REST APIs earlier, and we talked about integration. One of the awesome things that we're going to do is we are going to release invocables, which are kind of this thing that allows you to do anything with flow that you need to do with Ascent. We're going to now create an invocable for every single REST API that we created. So we have some invocables for inventory on the roadmap, and also for purchase orders. And so what we're going to do is basically we're going to bring those things up, and we're going to allow you to use flow and invocables instead of doing things directly into the database. We also have financial package enhancements that we're going to create, some around journaling, some around AR aging, and some other features. We also have rentals improvements coming as far as usability and the design. And in the future, we're going to have the real goal for invocables is to have, just like I said with the REST API, where we have everything in a REST API, we want to have everything that we do in an invocable. What this allows you to do is it allows you to basically recreate any interface that Ascent has on your own as a partner or a customer, and do all of the great things that Ascent does with one call out. And so if you want to do something fancy like receiving a PO or doing a bulk inventory movement, all of these things will be wrapped up for you and can be accessed in Flow. Also, we have a plan to do what I'm calling deep links inside of the master planner. And so what this is going to do is, when you're planning right now and you're on the master planner, it's got a grid of everything that's going on, and you click create PO. If that PO was as a result of like many sales orders and many production work orders, there's no way to see that data right now. You just have to trust the system. And so what we're doing is we're going to actually link those transactions that were created that actually helped create the PO from the master planner directly on the PO, so that you can see them at a later date. Also, we have some new strategies around our mobile barcoding. We are always going to be a rugged barcoding first solution, right? So you have a handheld, you can drop it on the ground, you can still use it with the laser, but in the future, we're also going to support using the mobile phone and the camera, just like a QR code. So if you did prefer to do something like that, maybe your business, it doesn't need high volume, but you need accuracy and you like using the phone, we're going to have that available as well. And then finally, on the roadmap is cloud printing of labels. So we want to be able to allow you to print a label to a label printer in anywhere all over the world from within Salesforce without being connected to that printer. And we know that we can do this. We have it working in a test environment, and it's currently in the QA stage. So last thing, if you want to learn more, this is the last slide. Whether you're a partner or a customer or a prospective customer, somewhere between, there's somewhere for you to go to get information. For customers, if you need help, go to help at Ascent ERP. If you're a partner and you have a question, or you want to be a new partner, contact Tom. His email is on the screen. His last name is kind of hard to spell, so if you want to, you can just email help at Ascent ERP. Also, if you're interested in more about us, you can go to the App Exchange, and you can also use the Contact Us link.